G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Here's little old Mr. Whitetail. Oh, don't run away. Come on, come back over here. Okay. And here's Felicity. Not a particularly good shot of her. And over there having a drink is their little son. I haven't quite given him a name yet, but I'll give him a couple of biscuits. Now, over the years, a lot of people have warned me that I was living dangerously by living so close to kangaroos and swamp wallabies. And a lot of people have thought that one day I would fail to turn up in town and they'd come out here and find me with either a kangaroo or a wallaby-sized shaped hole in me. And just recently, for those of you who've been paying particularly close attention to the comment threads, I have been sick, fairly unwell. And initially I thought I had rock melon disease, aka listeriosis. Listeriosis caused by listeria, which is, I think it's a bacteria, and the bacteria, look, see, there's a little parasite crawling all over his belly. We call them kangaroo flies. Anyway, listeria comes from the compost being splashed onto the rock melon when growers don't do a particularly good job of adhering to world's best practice. And after I'd been sick for a couple of weeks, it was announced that there was in fact an outbreak of listeriosis on the east coast of Australia. And the outbreak was blamed on pre-cut, pre-prepared rock melons sold in the supermarkets. And because I've been in the habit of buying pre-prepared fruit salad from the local supermarket, I thought, oh, well, maybe this mysterious achy, painy illness which started in the base of my left thumb, maybe it was rock melon disease. And as the aches and pains got worse and worse and worse, it was announced that there were 17 confirmed cases of listeria, and 4 of them were dead. So listeria apparently has a kill rate of 23.5%. And I found that fairly frightening, actually. So as the aches and the pains moved from one arm to the other arm and then moved to my legs, I took myself off to the doctor and was subjected to chest x-ray and an ECG and about 25 different blood tests. And sure enough, my infection markers were all slightly raised. And an expert on infectious diseases in Newcastle came to the conclusion that it wasn't quite pointing at anything and it wasn't a normal presentation for listeria, so listeriosis was excluded. And the pain got worse and I was prescribed 200 milligrams of doxycycline per day for 10 days, just in case what was troubling me was a bacterial infection. But the initial idea was that it was probably a virus, some unknown virus, and eventually my immune system would get on top of it. I've also been prescribed some pretty hefty doses of codeine phosphate with a little bit of paracetamol to make the medicine go down, to the tune of 120 milligrams of codeine per day if I feel the need. I've been restricting myself to only 60 milligrams of codeine per day in 2 doses because the leg pain is so bad that A, you can't sleep with it, and B, you can't walk or stand still unless you're medicated. So anyway, yesterday my doctor actually rang me up to tell me that the second lot of blood tests had come in and my infectious markers were all still rising, slowly and slightly. And he's come to the conclusion that I'm suffering from a rickettsial illness, which, to be honest, I'd never really heard of. So I dug out my 35-year-old second edition copy of Miller and Keen's Encyclopedia and Dictionary of Medicine, Nursing and Allied Health. And here's what it has to say about Rikettsia. A genus of small rod-shaped to round microorganisms found in the cytoplasm of tissue cells of lice, fleas, ticks and mites, and transmitted to man by their bites. The disease caused by Rikettsiae can be classified in groups: the spotted fever group, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Boutonuse fever, and rickettsial pox. The typhus group, epidemic typhus and endemic typhus, a TSU GAMUSHI group, Tsuchugamushi group, I suppose you'd say that, bracket scrub typhus, and a miscellaneous group including Q fever and trench fever. Rickettsial diseases are not common in communities with high sanitary standards, since prevention depends on controlling the rodent and insect populations. Major epidemics have occurred, especially in times of war, when standards of sanitation drop. Rikettsia, an individual organism of the family Rikettsiaceae. Rikettsiaceae, a family of the order Rikettsiales. Rikettsial pertaining to or caused by Rikettsia. Rikettsiales, an order of microorganisms occurring as elementary bodies usually found in intercellularly, parasitic for vertebrates and invertebrates which serve as vectors. They may be pathogenic for man and other animals. Rikettsial pox, a febrile disease marked by a vesicular papular eruption resembling chicken pox, clinically caused by Rikettsia acari and transmitted by mites, also called Kew Gardens spotted fever. Rikettsicidal, destructive to Rikettsia. Hello, Ericsson Flop here. I suppose you want a biscuit, do you? So, anyway, oh, come on. The doctor had initially thought that I'd perhaps been bitten by a kangaroo flea or a fly or one of the parasites. But on reflection, I don't think I actually have been bitten by anything that's come off the swamp wallabies or the kangaroos. Very occasionally one of the kangaroo flies tries to transfer itself onto me, but they don't actually like the experience because I guess humans just smell wrong, or they've got the wrong flavour to them. What I think's gone on is I have been bitten by a mite which normally preys on the yellow-footed Antichinus. Now, I wouldn't say that I suffer from bad sanitation because there are yellow-footed Antichinuses around here. The yellow-footed Antichinus is a protected native animal. In fact, a lot of people would say they're endangered. Personally, I don't like them because when they come into the hut, as they eat, they shit. And they like to shit on the breadboard. That's why I store my breadboard vertically, so that it's more difficult for them to shit on the breadboard. Come on. Attaboy. Dear oh dear. Getting chased away by the women. So anyway, other measures that I do take to protect myself from Antichinuses shitting on the breadboard and running around the hut in the middle of the night making noises and keeping me awake is that I permanently keep caches of ratsack, warfarin, an anticoagulant poison all around the outside of the hut. It's stashed all around the walls, inside and out. There's ratsack being poured all down there. I also keep ratsack in the ceiling space up here above the children's bunk room. And the gist of the theory is that when yellow-footed Antichinus decide that they want to forage in my hut rather than on the rest of the 100 acres, they come to the hut, they get a feed of ratsack, they get a bellyache, they go away, and hopefully, even if it doesn't kill them, it teaches them not to come here looking for a feed. However, every now and then one of them gets to be a little bit persistent. Want a biggie? That's it. And when the persistent Antichinus comes inside, they find another little stash of ratsack just waiting for them. So, the intelligent yellow-footed Antichinus is supposed to learn from the experience and go away and forage somewhere else. However, every now and then you get a stupid yellow-footed Antichinus, a stubborn yellow-footed Antichinus, a persistent yellow-footed Antichinus. And for the benefit of them, we have this Parks and Wildlife box trap, permanently loaded with a crust of bread. When the Antichinus goes in there, bang, it's trapped. Now, good boy. Yes, you can have one too. Hey, father and son. Damn, it's a pity you're so backlit. Right, so anyway, being a good little greenie and being very animal friendly, initially I tried all the different ideas of relocating them and all the rest of them. Trouble is, yellow-footed Antichinuses are highly territorial and they come back. They've come back from a kilometre away. So these days, block your ears if you don't want to hear about methods of euthanasing yellow-footed Antichinuses. I drop them into a 10-litre bucket with 5 litres of water in it. And they swim, they become hypothermic, they become exhausted, and they drown. That's how I deal with the yellow-footed Antichinus. But occasionally, particularly say 3-4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, we had a little mini heat wave, and I did notice a couple of times sitting out here on the veranda that some strange critters seemed to be dropping down out of the veranda roof line, and I noticed these little tiny weeny brown dots moving across my skin, like less than 1/10 of a millimetre across. Can't see any legs on them or anything like that, just a tiny little brown dot moving. Pretty easy to squash and flatten them and get rid of them and all the rest of it, but I must have missed a couple, because as the good book said, you get Rikettsia from the bites of lice, which I haven't had, fleas, which I haven't had, ticks, which I haven't had, and mites. So I think this nasty, vicious, evil, debilitating illness, which has knocked me around so badly for 3 weeks, it's not come from the kangaroos or the swamp wallabies. This rickettsial illness, which has had me rattling with antibiotics and painkillers, is the revenge of the yellow-footed Antichinus. Can't think of any simpler way to put it. On the bright side, I haven't had a beer for 2 weeks. I haven't had a pipe for 2 weeks. I've been in so much pain and in so much fear that I've been trying to give my immune system its very best chance at getting on top of whatever it is that's been bugging me. So, yeah, Warbles is sober for the first time for bloody years. So, consider that to be an update. Can't blame the swamp wallabies. Can't blame the kangaroos. It's all the fault of the yellow-footed Antichinus. So there you go. Now you know. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. That's the health update. Ciao.